And we are back live here on NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey, producer Chris Daughtry behind the scenes for today's show. It's been, 2 days since we were live on NFL Daily with the NFL Draft in the books. We'll look ahead to the rest of the NFL offseason on today's show, including what ends up happening with Jalen Ramsey, the Dolphins corner who the team said they were looking into trading and trying to trade, and the draft has come and gone with limited updates on that one. Will the Dolphins end up trading him? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Y or N in the comments. I am very curious to see how things end up playing out with Ramsey. There are some short-term benefits if the Dolphins can wait until after June 1st to find a way to trade him. But at that point, you're playing a little bit tough with timing for the other team getting him in there. So I'm not fully convinced it ends up happening, but I think it's in the cards that they wait a little bit longer on that front there. Y for yes, N for no. It is the pinned comment on today's video, or pinned poll. Excuse me, I should say. Will the Dolphins end up trading him? Y or N in the comments of today's show. 76% voting yes. Skibbity CD says no. Cornelius Pryor says yes. Flores says yes. Tim Tyler says yes. One Star Barbie, yes. Kevin says no. Y and N in the comment section of today's show. Not the only player that we will discuss as it relates for trades. George Pickens, another one with, I'll just say I'm curious to see how this actually ends up playing out for George Pickens. I think the likely outcome here is the Steelers probably had a pretty high asking price for the return, the value of George Pickens. I would bet they were asking for at least a day 2 pick, and I don't know if they were going to get that. I have doubts that they were going to get that with the other stuff that comes with George Pickens being on your roster and just the, I don't know, it's not quite diva, but it kind of is diva. Just like, I don't know, it's the tweet, the enemy carries a knife and sleeps and walks softly, whatever it is. Like, that's that attitude from the receiver. I think it's maybe 25%. Kevin's got 0%. Chris doesn't want Pickens in New England. Trading for a premium asset, like, you're going to extend him, and do you want to extend him? Like, I'd almost treat him more as like a 1-year rental, which that value of what you're offering is not going to match up with what Pittsburgh, I think, wants. So, 20, 30%. Can't ask if they were shopping him. They were shopping him. They're at least listening to offers. I don't know how close they really got, but it was going on. 10% from Shelley as well. Percent chance the Steelers trade George Pickens. Let me know in the comments of today's show. And then I want to know who won the NFL draft this year. One team, I guess you can go player if you want to as well. Who won this year's NFL draft? Let me know in the comments of today's show. Patriots in there from Titan Maximum 2, King 007. Who won this year's NFL draft? Patriots in there from Shelley. Tampa from Big Poppy is in there. Get your team. It be your favorite team. That's fine. It's type season. It's April 29th. Steelers, Panthers, Raiders. Pittsburgh being down a second-round pick hurt them. I do think for the lack of a second round, I think they did a pretty good job. Raiders in there, Seahawks in there, Panthers, Bears from Ted Kelly. Bears is a weird one for me. Not bad, but just kind of different from maybe what I would expected. Texans, dejected Cards fan, not so dejected anymore, has the Cardinals as the team that won the NFL draft. Ravens up top. Get those votes in. Brian says Pitt loved the Caleb Johnson pick. Yeah, I'm in a dynasty draft at some point coming up here. I'm hoping for like Johnson to kind of get to me around the turn is what I'm hoping for, because my running back room is terrible. It is so bad. So Who won the NFL draft? Let me know in the comments of today's show. Now, if you want us to start today's live stream, show it by liking today's video for me right now. Goal is always a 50% like ratio. We're not even to a fifth of that like figure. So help us out. Like the video, please, and thank you. Coming up live on today's show, we will break down some NFL news and rumors following the NFL draft. A mailbag. There's two ways to get on the show. You can use hashtag NFL or skip the line altogether via Super Chat. We will also do a 2026 NFL mock draft because those are fun. All that's coming up live here on NFL Daily. After a very successful 2025 NFL draft, we are 331 subs away from 409K. Hit that sub button. You'll get more free NFL YouTube videos all season and off-season long. Let's talk trade rumors. Let's begin with maybe the biggest name out there. That's Jalen Ramsey. The Ramsey trade rumors are out there. Look, the Dolphins have acknowledged they were trying to trade him. But two things. One, the Dolphins did not draft a cornerback early. They had a need, but they had to get aggressive and trade up for Jonah Savnaya. They did take a corner in Jason Marshall in the 5th round. I don't think that makes them feel great about a cornerback room that wouldn't feature Jalen Ramsey, be led by Cam Smith and Kader Kohu and Storm Duck. Elite name, but still. ESPN, their Dolphins beat writer, says the Dolphins are still trying to trade Ramsey before the season. On June 1st, there are some changes in terms of how the contract would get played out, mostly with the way they're able to kind of spread out the dead money. As it sits right now, Jalen Ramsey carries a meager $16.7 million cap hit. That's not that bad. But if the Dolphins trade him right now because they truly just extended him, before last season began, they would actually lose a sizable amount of salary cap space. That they would miss out on a lot of what they are currently in line to save. Now, if they were to trade him after June 1st, which they have to wait until after June 1st to do it, they push some of that money into 2026. It's not as bad on the cap hit, and they would save around the $9 million basically that the new team would owe on the cap, which is super cheap. The new team, though, owes $21 million in cash because, again, some people sign a bonus, not all of it. It's kind of a complicated contract to trade that has, multiple years on it. The new team cap jumps to $18 million. The dead money is $15. It just gets a little bit complicated in terms of what the money looks like. Ramsey is getting older. He is not the same young, no doubt, top 2, top 3 corner he was at his absolute prime. He's now on the wrong side of 30, turns 31 in October. The cornerback fall off can come for everybody and can come quickly. I still think he's really, really good, and if you're a contender, you should strongly consider trying to acquire Jalen Ramsey. But the fact that it didn't happen during the draft, I think opens the door for maybe there isn't a trade of Jalen Ramsey. What do you think ends up happening? Will the Dolphins trade Jalen Ramsey, whether it's this month or next month or during camp or in the preseason? Will Miami trade him before the new year begins? Y for yes, N for no. Let's discuss the latest on Jaire Alexander, the future of the Packers corner. We'll stick with corners here because why not? His future remains unclear in Green Bay. Rob Demovsky, I think I pronounced that correctly, the Packers beat writer over at ESPN, says, according to a source, the Packers and Jaire Alexander continue to talk about a possible resolution, which could include a reconciliation to where Alexander plays for the Packers in 2025 after all. All options on the table: release, trade, return. I think the Packers' mindset has been, we're not just going to give away Alexander for nothing. They're not just going to cut him outright unless they can try to make a trade happen. As we're getting into, the money's a problem here too. The Packers did draft a corner in the 7th round. So, again, questions as to whether or not they're actually in a good enough spot to make that all balance out. Low-key, the money is also super complicated because you got a bunch of cash that you still pay Alexander and Ramsey. But like an Alexander for Ramsey swap, in the NBA, this would have happened already. I'm convinced of it. NFL, more complicated in terms of the way the cap structure all gets sorted out. Alexander has a $24+ million cap hit this year, $17.5 in cash. The savings after June 1st are much better if you wanted to cut him. A trade is possible right now, though, too. And then you owe much cash next year. And that's concerning for a guy that has played 14 games the past 2 years, 20 games between 2021 and 2022. That's a lot of missed time. When Alexander is healthy, he's really good. He's not always healthy. And that is a real red flag when it comes to a potential trade. And does Alexander want to take a pay cut? And you kind of get a lot of conflicting points and disagreements between the camps, and that's why there's no resolution as we get closer and closer to May. NFL rookie jerseys are available. Get yours today over at chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Of note, these jerseys are, the link is kind of sorted by just like best selling, so you're going to have to maybe search for your team, search for your player. Funnily enough, the Shedeur Sanders jersey is one of the best sellers among rookies, which is kind of crazy. But men's, women's, they got you covered. Link will be in the comments section and the description for the new NFL rookie jerseys. Chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Let's go back to trade rumors, but at wide receiver, George Pickens. The Steelers have had trade talks around George Pickens, per Diana Rossini of The Athletic, but those seem to have cooled off now that the NFL draft has come and gone. I have not seen specific, truly credible, reliable details of what the Steelers' asking price is, and I very much wonder what it was, because my guess, they probably wanted a day 2 pick, right? Pittsburgh, I think they have at least the number 2 wide receiver, talent-wise. You know, Mike Tomlin should have said Pickens needs to mature, but there's undoubtedly talent. How much did they want to deal with it, I think, is a valid question. I don't think they were just going to give George Pickens away because everyone in their brother knew Pittsburgh needed another wide receiver. So to get DK Metcalf fills that, but then if you trade away Pickens and don't get a good asset back, okay, well, now you're right back where you started. It's, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't know if it's fully dead, the potential trade. But I think what the package looks like maybe is adjusted post-draft. What is the percent chance the Steelers trade George Pickens? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. 0 to 100% chance they trade him this offseason. Again, I don't think it's totally dead. I think that I think part of the concern for other teams is, look, Pickens is awesome, but the track record of Steelers receivers who are like, kind of crazy, and then leave, they don't get less crazy. It just gets a little bit worse, like Martavis Bryant and Antonio Brown and Deontay Johnson. Like, once they leave Pittsburgh, outside of, like, Emmanuel Sanders and Holmes got banged up, but, like, it gets a little bit more concerning. I don't think the signing of Robert Woods solidifies their number 2 receiver spot if they were to move on from George Pickens. When he is on, he's a fringe wide receiver 1, if not an actual wide receiver 1. And when he's off, it's almost like a liability out there with drops and just kind of mentality might not be the right word, but is that it's all the other stuff that comes along with George Pickens. It's some of the attitude. It's the allegedly missing meetings. It's getting fined repeatedly by his own team. It's just the maturity which is what Mike Tomlin has said, is kind of the main issue there, which I think does complicate a potential trade. If you can manage him, boy, you got a great talent. If you don't, stuff. And then let's discuss Amari Cooper. Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram reports there is, quote-unquote, building team interest in the Dallas Cowboys reuniting with Amari Cooper, who, of course, they once traded away for a day 3 pick and a later round pick swap. We'll go in depth on this, but first, what do you think? Should the Cowboys bring back Amari Cooper? A for yes, B for no. Sound off in the comments of today's show. Look, Amari is not the player he was in his prime. The injuries have kind of mounted a little bit. He had some drop issues last year. There was one quarterback in particular he seemed to suffer more drops from than others. Not all of which were the QB's fault, but that's been a trend for a couple of years in a row now with Amari. Cold weather games are a bit of an issue. The available wide receiver options are not good for a team like the Dallas Cowboys. The chemistry between Amari and Dak, in theory, is actually a benefit. But, I mean, Jalen Tolbert did outplay Amari Cooper last year statistically, which is probably a red flag. But you probably feel better about Cooper being your 2/3 than Jonathan Mingo and Jalen Brooks and Ryan Flanoy and everyone else in the CD and the maybes there at the wide receiving core in Dallas. I don't know how much interest there's truly been in Amari Cooper. We are now after the Monday from the draft, so anyone who signs does not impact the comp pick formula, except for you, Elijah Moore and J.K. Dobbins, since they got the free agent tender from their respective teams. We already saw some traction, guys like Deontay Johnson getting signed. I wonder how much longer Amari Cooper will wait unsigned. It's mailbag time here on NFL Daily. 2 ways to get on the show. Use hashtag NFL or Super Chat to skip the line altogether. Let me know in the comments of today's show with that hashtag NFL or Super Chat if you want to skip that line. I'm going to sip some of my hydration fluid. It's water in the end. So let me know. Hashtag NFL or Super Chat to get on the show. That's a couple ones coming earlier. Doesn't have to just be questions. It can be comments, thoughts, whether it's draft, big picture stuff, whatever. Future draft stuff if you want to get really weird with it and fun with it. So get those questions in via hashtag NFL or Super Chat. I will make notes. There are some super thanks coming out of this year's NFL draft that we'll get to on today's show as well. A super thanks to get things going on today's live NFL Daily Mailbag. Marcellus Lifts says, I'm happy with the Savone Revel pick, but I'm curious what you think about Kalen Carson's future. Could he be CB4? Only asking because I feel like the previous staff was pretty high on him. Love the show. First off, thank you, Marcellus. I like the, independent of fandom, I think the Revel pick on day 3 was good value for the Dallas Cowboys. Kalen Carson, the Cowboys did have a pretty high grade on. Year 1 was pretty rough. And I know he had the shoulder injury. I think that was kind of a shoulder injury where he could have kept playing, but at a certain point, it was just kind of like, okay, let's settle things down and then go from there. I think year 2, you're hoping for a step forward season. I think in an ideal world for Dallas, Kalen Carson beats out Kaiir Elam for the number 2/number 3 corner job until Trayvon Diggs ends up getting healthy. There's a real chance the Cowboys move on from Diggs this time next year. He's off the team. And then it's Bland and Revel and maybe Carson. Or they added a different nickel in there, and Carson does become that CB4. And if you can get a good backup QB with that kind of anything in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, it's actually a really good pick. This came in via Super Thanks. It is a feature on YouTube. It's like a Super Chat on live shows, except it is outside of live videos. Click the $sign with the heart around it, edit your message, send in whatever, and we will give you a shout-out on the show. Just going to go with F. Joe here. Do you think we need another developmental player with how poorly we played last year? When is the last time a developmental player overly succeeded for us? So I asked Joe to clarify, hey, which team? Because it's kind of like the one Batman Beyond one where it's like, do you have any idea in the slightest how little that narrows it down? It's a lot of teams that this ends up applying to. And I think there should be a balancing act. You don't want to go just production or just, proven with big playability or big production. You also don't want to just go traits because both have downsides. You ideally have a great athlete who also produce. Those guys tend to go super early. So different teams, different situations, different everything all kind of ties into where things currently sit. Like, do you think you have coaches who can develop players? If so, okay, then maybe you have more pursuit there. But I think these days, a lot of the development comes in the offseason with the personalized and specialized coaches you hire. Duke Manyweather for the offensive line. You draft an offensive lineman, he's working with Duke Manyweather. I actually feel pretty good about that guy developing more. If you're a team like, for example, some teams I think have more success with positions than others. Like if you're a Steeler, if you're the Steelers, for example, and you draft a receiver, you normally end up getting pretty good results on those guys, like historically speaking. If you're Kyle Shanahan and you draft a running back in the 3rd round, the guy you draft in the 5th round ends up being better for whatever reason. Now, I don't want to stereotype too much, but I think you need to have a balance. You don't want to have just production, just tools. Mix and match, and that's why the draft isn't an exact science. It's actually not easy to draft. Now, when it comes to the draft this year, who won the 2025 NFL Draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. John Dorman, predict the NFC North records and order. First off, what a good division that is. I feel like no matter what order you put them in, I'm going to have upset fan bases at me. So I apologize in advance because I think all four of these teams legitimately should be viewed as playoff contenders, and if they make the playoffs, they could potentially make some noise. So I'm going to go with. I'll go Packers 1 because I really like Matt LaFleur and I think Jordan Love's going to have a big time season. God, you could put him at 4 and it would have been fine. I'm just going to go in here. Packers, Lions, Vikings, Bears. And I think we have a real chance at the almost never seen all four teams finish at or above 500. I think all four of those teams are real playoff teams. Probably comes down to some teams going to have a bad injury and end up falling to 4. True or lore, I think we'll see Brandon Ayuk on the football field. I think he's a chance for week 1. I wouldn't put that in stone, but it wasn't a good injury. I think maybe the pup list is where he starts. I think over-under, back from what? He got hurt in like week 7, whatever. It's probably a decent over-under. Josh, so is Kirk Cousins just not going to get traded? I don't know. It's not Cleveland anymore. They drafted 2 QBs. I feel like you're not going to go trade for Kirk Cousins then. Kind of feels like outside of another injury happening and something else slotting in, and then you just go there like the one Sam Bradford trade all those years ago, which was an overpay. He's either back in Atlanta as the backup and they move on from him next year, or if the Rodgers-Pittsburgh stuff never gets sorted out, kind of feel like Pittsburgh fallback is Kirk Cousins. So, will the Falcons end up trading away Kirk Cousins, say before the season begins? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Christopher, will the Patriots trade for any more wide receivers? I'm going to go with probably not. If anything, they might try to shop somebody because they've got Stephon Diggs. They signed Mac Hollins. They drafted Kyle Williams in the 3rd. They drafted Jalen Polk in the 2nd last year. They've also got guys like Javon Baker and Pop Douglas and Kendrick Bourne, and I feel like Kayshon Boudy's going to be on the move there. So that's a lot of receivers for some competition, and somebody else will probably end up being on the outside looking in. I don't think there's going to be any more big trades by New England, at least not this offseason. Tony, I think the Chiefs did well in this draft. Frankly, I give it an A+. I gave it, let me double check my notes here and make sure I don't misspeak it. I did give it an A as well. I thought they kind of cooked on day 3. I thought Jeffrey Bassa, Brashard Smith, even some of those day 2 picks, I thought they did a really good job. It's not a surprise. I think Josh Simons was a perfect fit back in round 1. I like a lot of what KC did. Skibbity CD, how good will John Mateer be in the NFL? That is the Oklahoma quarterback who transferred in from Washington State, if my memory serves correctly. We'll do a 2026 mock draft that I'd make all the picks, and I'm going to mention a bunch of other QBs to monitor. He'll be on that list. I am excited to see how he plays in the SEC. I think that there's a little bit more optimism about this QB class because there are some young guys that showed some promise and could take a big-time step forward. So I want to see how this year plays out, but I promise you he is on NFL teams' radars. If you guys enjoy our NFL mailbags, sweet, we appreciate that. Help us out. Hit that sub button for more free NFL YouTube videos. Skyler, my brother's a huge NFL fan. Thinks Jaden Blue will be RB1 and be the franchise back. I think he's got the big playability to be an impactful piece. I don't know if he has the body type to hold up with like I think a franchise like a Saquon Barkley, a Derrick Henry, even an Aaron Jones type. Like, I don't know if he has the body armor and the size and the power to hold up in that role. But as like a 1A, 1B in a committee with maybe more of a power back you get next year, or if Jamal Williams or Javonte Williams wants to take another role, yeah, I think there's a chance he could lead the team in rushing this year, but at least be a big time 3rd down piece. I don't know about franchise running back. Like I don't picture him in the same mold as like an Emmitt Smith, a Zeke Elliott for this team. LaCora Victor, the prime version of those guys, by the way. Should the Bears sign Nick Chubb? If so, will they trade away DeAndre Swift? Because I believe Swift wants to start somewhere else. I'll say this. I don't think anyone's signing Nick Chubb to be a starter. Like, to not be like the true lead back. I could see a scenario in which the Bears do sign Nick Chubb, and they kind of go with that committee, but I think Swift is in line to get the most carries in Chicago. Nick Chubb, guys, he was bad last year. Now he's coming off a bad injury. The fact he's able to play is kind of impressive. I like him as a buy low candidate, but I don't know how much the Bears trust Roschon Johnson. Kyle Monangai was a 7th-round pick. I think Swift is – I would not be surprised if the Bears sign Nick Chubb. That makes sense to me. I think he fits the schematics of what they want to do on the ground, but I think Swift is still your RB1. MA football guy. Yo, man, big dad bod here. I love my Patriots' first picks being on offense, but I agree with you on the Ashby pick. I think the Patriots had more picks than anybody else this year. I believe that was the stat I saw. And I like what they did a lot. Again, I thought Kyle Williams, Will Campbell, Henderson, Jared Wilson. That's a really fun grouping of 2 trench players and 2 explosive playmakers on offense. That's awesome. Thought Farmer was a good pick in the 4th. I just don't know if you need to draft a kicker and a long snapper. Like, did you need to? It's also a 7th rounder, so it's not that bad. Like the worst case at the seat. From Sam, which wide receiver will Green Bay trade? Romeo Doubs / Dubs. He found both pronunciations. Probably. I mean, Dubs was the one who had issues last year with the suspension and whatnot. Christian Watson is probably not going to be healthy this year coming off the knee injury. Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, maybe there's interest in Dontavian Wicks, but Dubs has more production. Savion Williams is going to need some time, I think, to kind of develop a little bit. If they get a good offer for Dubs, I could see it. They also could just allow it to ride and see how it plays out. So name a player who you think ends up getting traded. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Michael Wilderman, excuse me. I almost said Wilderman, which I don't think is how you pronounce that one, Michael. So I'm sorry. Who are your 8 division winners? All right, AFC South. I'm gonna go with Houston. I think that probably is probably the favorite. AFC North. I'll go Ravens, but you can almost guarantee the Steelers finish above 500, and that's all they do. And the Bengals will probably be a playoff team if they can get the defense playing at top 20 instead of bottom 10. AFC West. I'll take Chiefs. AFC East, I'll go Bills. Guess I'll go Packers in the NFC North, but I'm not confident on that one. That's going to be a hell of a division. NFC East, how can I not take the AFC? The curse is real. The curse is real, but I guess I'll go Philadelphia since they did just win the Super Bowl. NFC West, I'm going to go Rams on that one. NFC South, let me run it back with the Bucks, but I am kind of tempted by Atlanta too. Dr. Pancake, which rookie QB will win the most games next season in 2026? I'm going to go with Cam Ward just because that's the one that I feel most confident is actually going to start in 2026. I think there's still uncertainty everywhere else. Like, there are scenarios in which, like, the Saints draft a new QB early next year and the Giants have success with Russ and keep him and give Jackson Dart more time, or they don't have success and then it's a new regime and it gets dicey there. Epic Jet, you think the Browns pick Shedeur because Jimmy overrode Andrew Berry? Maybe? I don't know. The Browns' handling of the QB stuff I thought was pretty weird. Like, why would you take Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd just to take Shedeur in the 5th? Like, did you need both of them? Like, how does that competition bear out? Like, it wouldn't surprise me. It's not like, Haslam has meddled before. It'd be nice if they just went, yeah. Because my mindset was, if you're going to take Dylan Gabriel, then you probably just were out on Shedeur, period. Because, like, I don't think Dylan Gabriel's a better player than Shedeur Sanders. I don't believe that. But then to take it Shedeur later, it makes me think, okay, so he wasn't off your board unless it gets really dicey. And I do think Gabriel's going to be a good backup QB. But I am inclined to think that, yeah, ownership. QB is an ownership call in part anyway, so I do think ownership had some influence. We did not get to your question. My apologies, but good news. My Twitter DMs are open. Please send me NFL questions so I don't just get a bunch of part-time hotel job offers and crypto scams and other stuff that I don't want to deal with on Twitter. So hit me up at What's Going Downey. Kind of the last day to really ask questions about the NFL draft. What was the best 2025 NFL draft pick? Let me know in the comments section of today's video. Best NFL draft pick. Let me sip some more water here. Best 2025 NFL draft pick. Let's see. Jaden Blue is any team, obviously. Any team. Jaden Blue is in there for Luis Rodriguez. Appreciate that. Sir Chai is calling Shadur the starting QB. I mean, would anyone be surprised? At least at some point he gets a chance like that. That QB room is not good. Like Kenny Pickett, Flacco, who's I think is actually a great vet mentor. Like that makes so much sense to me. And then Gabriel, I could teach you to win the job. Chase Lutton, that's a fun answer. Luther Burden, Caleb Johnson, Derek Harmon, Mike Green, Xavier Watts, Ashton Genty as well. That's fun. Travion Henderson. Henderson was one of my favorite backs this year. That's so much explosiveness in the run game and even passing game for the Patriots. So get your votes in. Best 2025 NFL draft pick. Then we'll get to the final segment of today's show. We're breaking down Dane Brugler's way too early 2026 NFL mock draft, and we'll react to all the picks that Brugler makes. Obviously, it's way too early. The draft order here is based on the Vegas odds, so A, don't shoot me as the messenger, and B, blame Vegas more than anybody else. Now, if you want me to do my own 2026 NFL mock draft, show it by typing me in the comments section of today's show as we break down what Dane has. With the first pick, the Saints take Arch Manning, the quarterback out of Texas. Now, I will say, I think there is a very real possibility. In fact, I'd say it's more likely than not right now that Arch Manning goes back to school for at least 2026. He's got 3 more years of eligibility. He had a redshirt year, then last year. I would not rule that out. I think the scenario in which Arch goes pro, he plays out of his mind. He lives up to all the hype despite not actually playing all that much yet in his college career. I think it is more hype than production so far. And, if the Saints get number 1 overall pick, then, look at that. Saints get to draft the grandson of the last quarterback they took in the first round. But I do think, again, there is a real possibility Arch does not go pro this upcoming season. The Jets at number 2, Lenore Sellers. I'm really intrigued about him entering this season. I think this is in general, when you do way too early mock drafts, you're projecting growth and a step forward. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Sellers has traits. He's got great size, mobility, arm strength. As a passer, he's not there yet. But if you project a step forward, he's probably gonna get some Cam Newton comps. Like that's the upside here. Next up on the mock draft is a Utah offensive tackle. Not often you see one of those. Spencer Fano out of Utah. The Giants at picking at 3. In theory, you get some protection there for Jackson Dart. It's always I think it's a good thing for an offensive lineman when your chin has muscles. I think that's a positive thing. All right, TJ Parker, edge from Clemson. We'll talk about a different Clemson player later on. The Tigers have a lot of really good talent. They should be a good team this year. Parker, I think, has a chance to be one of the first, if not the first, defensive players drafted. Has the burst teams covet at the edge rusher spot. Browns at 5. Oh, they take a quarterback. And Drew Aller, again, I talk about the upside, the potential stuff. The arm strength is great. The size is great. The consistency is not. The one thing I think I need to see out of Drew Aller that I haven't seen from some QBs, even in this year's class and last year's class, can you make plays in the biggest moments? Can you deliver on third downs? Aller did not really in the CFP run. Now, Penn State should be good again this year. Going to be a lot of high-profile games to kind of make those biggest moments happen on the biggest stage. This would be a homecoming, by the way, for Drew Aller. He is, I believe, from Cleveland originally. I think going back to school was the right decision. If he takes a step forward, awesome. Otherwise, he's going to get that Christian Hackenberg tag slapped on him. Who do you think will end up being the first QB taken in the 2026 NFL Draft? It's the pinned comment. Let me know at that spot. The ad comes here on YouTube. Carolina gets a defensive tackle. Keldrick Folk, the DT out of Auburn. Offers some run stopping, offers some pass rush. Really great size, 6'6", 288. Auburn kind of gave him some defensive end, 5 technique stuff. Offers some of that like Eric Armstead style of play, Cam Hayward style of play. I would actually put Caleb Downs as my number 1 player right now, but it is a safety, and safeties aren't as valuable there. The former Alabama player transferred to Ohio State. He is everything I covered in a safety: size, speed, athletic ability, playmaking. He's going to be in every single top 10 mock draft. Colts take Caden Proctor, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. Proctor's got great size. Did the weird Bama transfer again. Kind of played banged up last year. So a healthy season, and you're hoping this ends up looking like a true round 1 left tackle prospect. Austin Barber, the offensive tackle out of Florida, size, athletic ability. By the way, this Browns pick here, which they've got some uncertainty long-term at the tackle spots, is from Jacksonville as part of the Travis Hunter trade. Mateo Uyunglele, the edge rusher out of Oregon. Oregon lost all but one of their defensive line starters, and it was Uyunglele, who I think has maybe better traits than the other 3 guys, all of whom got drafted this year. Harmon, Birch, and Caldwell. This is DJU's younger brother. Is not the smaller brother by any stretch of the imagination. He's going to have a lot of hype around him going into this season. Jermon McCoy, the cornerback out of Tennessee, who began his career at Oregon State, then goes to the Volunteers. 4 interceptions in his sophomore campaign. Rams could still use a corner. This pick, by the way, via the James Pierce trade, which, boy, if that pick ends up being top 12, there's going to be some frustration, I think, in Atlanta. Anthony Hill Jr., one of my favorite prospects, early prospects, out of Texas. This is a very fun, athletic linebacker. He can blitz, he can run, he can cover. There's some similarities, like maybe some souped-up DeMarvion Overshown, or the best of what we saw from DeMarvion Overshown when he's been healthy for the Dallas Cowboys. I think he would thrive in Seattle with Mike Macdonald. By the way, not the best Texas defender, but Colin Simmons is not draft eligible quite yet. Oh, look, another Ohio State first-round wide receiver. This would be 6 in 5 years, by the way. Carnell Tate, who was the number 3 receiver last year behind Jeremiah Smith, not draft eligible, part of an unreal 2027 class at receiver, by the way. Just stay tuned for that one. Now gets to be the number 2. Could put up big-time production for the Buckeyes. Dolphins, I think this would be a Tyreek Hill replacement in this scenario. More picks to come, but you can get NFL rookie jerseys over at chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. It is sorted by kind of like most popular, best-selling, so you might have to search or scroll or, pick a filter by a team. The Shitter Sander ones are quite popular. Go figure. Links in the comments and the description of today's video. Chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Let's go to the Dallas Cowboys, pick 14. By the way, I don't love this receiver class, by the way. Do want to mention that early on. Jeremiah Love, this is the only back that Dane's got mocked here. Health has kind of been a red flag in the past. He is explosive as all get out. Notre Dame will lean on him with a new quarterback involved. As long as that kind of lower body stays healthy, this is one of the most dynamic backs in all of college football. Love his game. Just go watch that 98-yard touchdown run against Indiana. All right. Arizona, C.J. Allen. There's a Georgia player. I thought was really good against the run. Kind of popped a few times watching all the other Georgia players on that team. In general, I think this class is a little bit light on some of the top-end talent. QB could be better. I think NFL needs some breakout players from guys like Georgia and Clemson and Alabama to kind of step up. Pittsburgh at 16, Garrett Nussmeier. Had he gone pro, I think he would have been taken before Jackson Dart this year. The bar is not crazy high on that one there. My biggest thing for the Nuss bus, especially if he wants to end up going to the Saints where his dad is the OC, I want to see him cut down on some of the nonsense that decision making. Like, there's moments of like, dude, what are you doing? Like, he'll actually do progressions and then just like be so caught up in going 1, 2, 3. He's throwing it to 3 no matter what, and there's a guy right there. That's what confuses me. Ruben Bain had a really great season 2 years ago for the Hurricanes as a true freshman. Was a bit banged up last year. If he gets back to form and takes a step forward, 17 might be too low for him. Dane is calling a shot with Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon here. He was kind of stuck behind Terrence Ferguson. Oregon's going to replace Tez Johnson, replacing Ferguson. He has only 332 yards, but in general, I've noticed this. When Dane calls his shot early on a player who hasn't been super productive so far, he kind of ends up being right. Now, we've got you covered on all things NFL, including but not limited to NFL Draft. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. LT Overton, the Texas A&M transfer, now at Alabama, who played for Alabama, by the way, last year. Again, kind of has some semblances to Shamar Stewart. Not as big, not quite as athletic. Just needs to finish a little bit more consistently. NFL teams are quite high on him. I think that Peter Woods is going to go earlier in the draft. Now, Clemson, because of the bodies they had, they were playing him at defensive end some last year, and he's like 315. So put him at defensive tackle, let him cook. I would not be surprised if Peter Woods has, and this is a former 5-star, super talented kid, has such a good season. We're talking on him in the top 5, top 10. Jalen Kilgore, the cornerback out of South Carolina, 5 interceptions, by the way, in 2024, tying with Jade Barron and Andrew Bakuba, has pretty good size as well. South Carolina, low-key, has kind of developed a very nice little talent pipeline. They need to take the step forward this upcoming season. Tyreek Sapp, who's kind of got a weird build. He's like 6'2", 275 at edge. That's not a common build, but I think he holds it, handles it pretty well. He's got really intriguing disruption traits, and with some of the departures up front for Florida, is in line for big-time play. Cage Casey. It's a great offensive line name, by the way. Cage Casey. Out of Boise State. He was a factor in some of the ground game stuff for Ashton Genty. Curious how he fares with another step forward. If you're seeing, okay, Avion Terrell, that's quarterback out of Clemson. Wait, his last name is Terrell. Is that? Yes, it is A.J. Terrell's brother. Not as big as A.J., a little bit more undersized, but I think he looks like he grew up watching his NFL older brother. Like, that's kind of like the vibe I get. Like, he's got natural instincts overall, and I think it's pretty fluid too. Whit Weeks, the linebacker out of LSU, tackling machine for the Tigers. He did outplay Harold Perkins this past season. Did suffer an ankle injury in the bowl game, so we'll have to keep an eye on that one. Bengals get offensive line help. Francis Mauigoa out of Miami. This is the younger brother of Francisco, who was drafted in this past year's NFL draft by the Jets. 5-star offensive tackle recruit. Has played right tackle for Miami. Not sure about who goes to the left side then, if the Bengals are taking him at tackle, but he has the traits to be a potential first-round pick. I actually kind of dig Dane putting Fernando Mendoza in here. This is the Cal to Indiana transfer. I saw a lot of good stuff out of him this past year. Cal's lost a bunch between the winter and spring transfer portal. Indiana, they made a bunch of noise last year behind Curtis Rourke. Can Mendoza take even another step forward beyond that? It's a lot of QBs Dane had in there. And it doesn't include guys like Carson Beck, who really saw his draft stock kind of tank a little bit this past year. I think there's one other QB I'll mention here at the end of the show that I think should probably be in the conversation too. How many QBs go in round 1 of the 2026 NFL draft? Get those predictions in the comments of today's show. Lions get an edge. I mean, that certainly makes some sense, right? Anto Saka out of Northwestern. Again, Dane's kind of calling a shot here. Never started a game yet, but as a sub-package pass rusher, that's what you're aiming for there. All right, Keanu Tanuvasa out of BYU, transferred from Utah, so the rare Holy War transfer that you don't always see all that much there. Dane's kind of calling a shot here. Missed a big part of the season, hoping for a breakout year. I think is actually a good fit for what the Chiefs need, though. I love the Bills taking a safety. Kamari Ramsey, I think probably gone top 75 had he turned pro. Good athlete, good range, some playmaking ability. In general, I like this safety class a lot. This is an upside pick, too. The Ravens take Evan Stewart, the wide receiver out of Oregon. The consistency is not there. The flashes are. And it's almost now or never for Evan Stewart. Jude Bowery, the Eagles. Oh, look, they take an offensive tackle. Doesn't actually kind of make some sense, right? Ozzie Trapillo was taken in round 2. His running mate is also pretty darn good. I think better pass protector right now than a run stopper in Jude Bowery. All right, it is very early. There's definitely names that are going to go in round 1 that Dane did not include. That's how it goes. Who did he leave off his 2026 NFL mock draft? I'll mention some names here in just a second. I was very impressed by Cade Klubnik down the stretch. I thought we kind of saw the breakout happen almost in real time. I think he's got a chance to make a massive step forward, and I think he can push for being a real round 1 pick among other QBs that will contend. I think Cade Klubnik is the one to monitor. Nick Singleton could have gone pro, and I think made the right call to come back in such a loaded class. He and his teammate in the backfield at Penn State are very good players. I have seen Nick Harbor in round 1 mock drafts. He is going to be the ultimate. I'll mention him. Dude is a freak athlete. He's like 6'5", 230. I think his weight at 240 in the past. And is a second-team All-American in track because he's that fast. He ran a 10-1 100-meter dash. He's a cheat code in CFB 25. But he's still athlete playing football right now, so I can't put him in there. Aaron Anderson's undersized, but he's got athletic juice. Jordan Tyson, did not get to see him in the CFP run, but he was a big part of the ASU offense. Denzel Boston has flashed a little bit. Isaiah World is a Nevada transfer. Underrated name to keep an eye on. I know PFF loves Jake Slaughter. It's an elite name, too, so name theory there. Christian Miller out of Georgia is probably primed for a big step forward. Caleb Banks has flashed. Danny Dennis Sutton had almost 9 sacks last year. Could be primed for a big year. Sontaran Perkins from Ole Miss is kind of a weird tweener with his size. He's listed like 210, but he had a bunch of sacks, so kind of curious what his role ends up being this upcoming year and beyond. Harold Perkins has long had a round 1 draft type, but he's coming off an injury. The production has been not consistent since his freshman year. Deontay Lawson, longtime name, but he's had injury problems. Malik Muhammad is a damn good corner. I think could probably more top 50 than round 1 right now. See how that this year plays out, obviously. Dylan Thieneman, not a household name. He was at Purdue last year. He might thrive at Oregon, though. So will the Dolphins end up trading Jalen Ramsey? The pinned poll on today's video. Y for yes, N for no. 72% voting yes. Will the Dolphins end up trading away Jalen Ramsey? Y or N? Everyone loves Nick Harbor, man. I mean, the athletic ability alone is just stupid. Like, he's gonna get drafted. I still kind of wonder if he actually should just be a pass rusher. I kind of think that's where he should be. Teams wanted him as an edge. He wanted to play receiver. That's why he ended up at South Carolina. That dude is the freakiest of freaks. Like, that's how it goes. N for Luis Rodriguez, but still 72% voting yes. We will have a lot more coverage for you here at Chat Sports. Appreciate every single person who tuned in. You guys are awesome. More videos coming throughout the week, and then we get into kind of NBA season too. I have a lot of stuff going on there with playoffs and draft and offseason, kind of all jam-packed. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out.